Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the webinar Fire Safety in a Changing World. It's 9:30. This is the first webinar in a series of webinars and events that will be organized this week as part of the 7th edition already of the European Fire Safety Week. The week-long program features webinars and events on a wide variety of fire safety topics. The European Fire Safety Week also includes a webinar on the fire information exchange platform, as well as public awareness campaigns for smoke alarms that takes place on this Friday. My name is Martin Franke, and I will be your host for this morning webinar. I'm delighted to have you as policymakers, experts, and stakeholders together to drive progress towards a fire-safe Europe. If you have any questions during the webinar, my request would be to wait for the Q&A at the end of this webinar, or just drop your question in the chat and I will forward that to the relevant speaker. This webinar on fire safety in a changing world will touch on several aspects. I'm proud to have with us Paul van der Zenden. He's General Director of Your Alarm. He will highlight the impact of the energy transition on fire safety. Next, there's Miguela Furik of the European Consumer Association ANEC. Welcome, Miguela. She will explain the importance of creating awareness for fire safety risks for vulnerable people. And the final presentation will be done by Thorsten Teichert, who is not yet here, but who chairs the task group Domestic Life Safety and who will present some practical solutions and guidance towards residential fire safety. But first of all, let me introduce to you Mr. Heikki van Anen of the EU's Directorate General for Internal Market, Industry, Entrepreneurship and SMEs, who is through the information exchange platform involved in the topic of fire safety, and I'm proud to have him here with us to do the opening of the European Fire Safety Week. Welcome, Heikki, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Martin. Good morning from my side as well. It's a pleasure to be here and to be involved in the opening of the webinar on fire safety in a changing world. The topic of this morning is very important and it's very current at the moment. As Martin said, I'm Heikki Väänänen. I use an abbreviation DG Grow, but it was that long name that Martin just told you. I work there in a unit responsible for construction, and part of my work or job description relates to fire safety, starting from product level and going to the construction works level. At the moment, we are in the middle of parallel changes. First of all, the environments that we are living in are changing rapidly. We are seeing more urbanization, climate change agenda puts pressure on built environment. There is a rapid technological change going on, and there are societal issues that are happening, like, for example, a demographic change of the societies in which we are living in. This all means that the fire safety risk that we are used to and for which our built environment has been designed to address is also changing. The cities will be bigger, they will be more dense, they will be more complex. We are adding new materials, new technologies to new buildings, but also to existing buildings. And this is going to transform the way we build and how we live in our societies. One thing, however, remains always the same, no matter what's going on in the society. And this is, how do we protect people from the risk of fire? And especially, how do we protect those groups of people that are most at risk. In this respect, my personal claim would be that I'm not so sure that we have identified all the relevant problems or relevant challenges that these changes are making to our societies. And I'm not sure that we have solutions also already for those risks that we have identified, but we certainly don't have even identified all the risks. Now, when we are in such a situation, we cannot just call the time out and let's stop everything, let's solve our problems and continue afterwards. This is not going to happen. So what we need to do is to address these challenges and even problems while we go. And in this respect, the crucial thing for me is that we have to create and gain knowledge. And the second part of that is that we need to share that knowledge, because it's not necessary to invent the wheels all around Europe at the same time. And for this sharing, knowledge sharing, I think the European Fire Safety Week is a very good platform and very important platform, because it pulls together different professionals from different backgrounds with different knowledge, with different experience, to share their understanding of the challenges that we are facing. I hope this webinar and all the webinars and events during this week will give us all new insights and better understanding of the world that we are facing in relation to fire safety. With these words, I wish you an interesting and productive webinar, and also throughout the whole week of European Fire Safety Week 2025. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Heikki. Your remarks provide an inspiring start, I think, to the week, and reaffirm the European Commission's support for improving fire safety across Europe. Thank you. Improving fire safety is also the mission of Euroalarm, and make Europe a safer and more secure place to work, live and travel. Euroalarm is the European Association for Fire Safety and Security that is hosting this first webinar of the week. The association was founded 55 years ago, and its members make society safer and more secure through systems and services in the field of fire detection, fire extinguishing and security. The association and its members support a single European market. They drive in digitalization and innovation, invest in well-trained workforce, amongst others, by promoting diversity in our industry. And last but not least, our members and associations contribute to a green Europe. And that last objective is a nice stepping stone, I think, to the next presentation on the impact of the energy transition on fire safety. The global shift towards renewable technologies brings tremendous benefits for our environment, but it also introduces new fire risks and safety challenges. Paul van der Zenden, General Director of Euroalarm, will dive into that. Paul, the floor is yours. And perhaps unmute yourself, that allows us to hear you as well.
And you can see me also. Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining today's session about the impact of energy transition on fire safety. Our topic today is how Europe is shifting to a cleaner energy and doing that in a safe way. Electrical vehicles, batteries, hydrogen, this is all transforming the landscape, and that means also that there will be an impact on fire safety, so also an impact on fire safety professionals. First of all, why do we need a change? Europe's energy strategy is focused on 5 main goals. The main drivers are to make Europe more energy dependent, reduce imports, and also cut CO2 emission. The strategy is driven by a huge transition to new and more green energy, and it basically touches all parts of our society. The transition includes renewable energy, solar and wind, but also projects in hydrogen, nuclear power, and zero emission transport are part of that. Because we pursue these goals, fire safety must be part and remain part of this equation. Because innovation without safety can slow down the progress and instead of advancing the process. We all understand why this change is happening. Climate change, energy independence, and the need for resilience. But we have to understand that change always brings new risks. The energy ecosystem is becoming more and more complex, and so are its potential fire hazards. Our challenge is to ensure that we have a sustainable and fire safety evolution. Every day we rely on batteries, powering our smartphones, laptops, e-bikes, scooters, and even home energy systems. They seem harmless, yet batteries can pose a serious and often underestimated risk. Many people don't realize that even a small lithium-ion battery can ignite sometimes without warning, releasing flames, smoke, and toxic gases. Battery fires can start from simple causes: overcharging, short circuits, physical damage, or using counterfeit or low-quality batteries. Once ignited, these fires spread quickly and are difficult to extinguish with conventional methods. That makes them dangerous in home, office, and public spaces. Understanding the risk is the first step to prevention. Battery fires are real, sudden, and often underestimated. But with awareness, we can significantly reduce the danger. We have to stay alert. We have to respect the power of batteries, and we should not underestimate the risk. Okay, I have a hiccup in the slide deck. One moment, please. Good, we move on. In our changing world and also changing environment. Transport is rapidly electrifying. E-bikes, scooters, hybrid and electric cars. Mobility depends now more and more on lithium-ion batteries. We have more energy stored in our vehicles than ever before, and often they are parked in enclosed spaces or in underground garages. Each innovation that helps CO2 reduction also creates challenges for the fire professionals. Energy storage is another topic in the heart of the transition. Whether at grid scale or in homes, batteries allows us to store energy and make it available when needed. But storage also means energy. And if something goes wrong, that energy is released violently. Fire safety community must adapt to this new type of risk. There's still a low frequency, but the impact is big. Another change we see is in what we call the cordless world. Wireless tools, portable electronics, scooters, even the grass mowers today are equipped with lithium-ion batteries. The convenience of lithium-ion battery is everywhere. Users often don't understand the fire risk, and that comes with batteries. For sure, when they are damaged or when you buy cheap chargers, people believe as long as the power plug fits, it's okay. Education and awareness are essential components of prevention. Also, our homes are transforming. From a simple electric installation, we move to a kind of energy hub. We have solar panels on the roof, wall batteries in garage, and chargers next to fuse boxes. Hydrogen boilers and micro wind turbines are on the horizon. These systems introduce high voltage circuits and flammable gases into domestic spaces, which were not originally designed for them. That's why proper design, certified materials, and qualified installers are critical to avoid new household fire scenarios. This is a classic example where fire safety and innovation for homes must go hand in hand with policy energy. Many of these technologies already exist. They are not for future. They are current ones. Products like lithium-ion batteries or hydrogens are part of everyday's life. But legislation and standards are still catching up. We know that we don't have all the answers yet, but that's exactly why working together with all the stakeholders is essential. In and around our homes, there are two main areas impacting fire safety. First, about solar panels, which introduce their own risks. DC arcing, continuous life circuits, even when isolated, and installation on combustible roofs. Firefighters often face limited access, and that makes suppression very difficult. These risks can be manageable. With a good regulation, approved installers, certified materials, we can reduce the number of incidents. This is where training, quality, and standards can make the difference. Lithium batteries are, of course, a different chapter. They can fail without any warning. They can develop very quickly, threaten escape routes, produce toxic gases, and are very difficult to extinguish. For responders, this is unfamiliar and dangerous fire behaviors that requires new strategies and new tools. When a lithium battery fails, the process is really violent. Thermal runaway can lead to vapor cloud, explosions, directional flames, and toxic gases. Even when the fire appears out, energy may remain and result in new fire hazard. Understanding this behavior is key to effective response. Consumers should also have a better understanding. Understanding the risk can help to reduce the number of incidents. Of course, the more batteries are in our surrounding, the bigger the risk will become. In 2024, we had more than 500,000 e-scooters across Europe, and over 5 million e-bikes were sold. This means millions of these batteries are in our homes, in our streets, and on working places. Outside that, we have also batteries in power tools and things like robot vacuum cleaners, laptops, phones, tablets. They are everywhere around us. More devices means also more potential fail points. So prevention through public awareness and product quality is crucial. Looking at EV cars and hybrid cars, Europe has already millions, or fully electric or hybrid. And cars can create a problem in every phase of use, as well charging, storage, or impacted during transport or during an accident, offers opportunities for failure. Even small design flaws or counterfeit components can lead to catastrophic results. So traceability and compliance throughout the supply chain are just as important as end user behavior. Why are EV fires special? Flames with temperatures above 1000 degrees, explosive gases, and also the polluted runoff from water create problems which are new for us. Also, the fact that incident can last for hours and require large volumes of cooling water. That's why emergency planning, training, and proper ventilation in parking structures are vital. Because of the increased volume of micromobility, fires spread quickly and violently. You see and hear more and more incidents also in the news and if you follow it on the internet. Damaged cells or faulty chargers can release hydrogen fluoride and other toxic gases, and this can lead to a fire and an explosion. These devices are often charged in closed spaces like corridors, storage rooms, entry portals, or you see them even in studios, living rooms, and bedrooms. These fires can trap occupants in seconds. So again, prevention starts with the awareness and enforcing of product standards. With the number of batteries in and around our home, you see that also more and more reports come on home incidents. As an example about getting information, I recently bought a new electric bike, and I asked the salesperson in the shop about fire safety. And his answer was very standard. He said, I should not believe all the stories on the internet. Coming at home, I read the manual, and even the manual did not mention anything about fire safety risk or about charging risks. This is for me one of the proofs that there is not enough done in education and creating awareness with end users. The information should be given when you purchase devices with batteries included. In home incidents, in home environment incidents can be catastrophic. The mentality by a lot of end users that it will not happen to me is not helpful. While new technologies introduced increase new risks, we still have the existing risks. We should not forget that most of domestic fires today still start from everyday activities. Cooking remains a leading cause of home fires across Europe. Smoke and heat sensors can help, of course, but also stove guards who can switch your stove off on the moment of an incident can help also. It also asks for a different way of treating. A few incidents were published where a cat basically switched on an electric cooking furnace. And there were goods left on the furnace itself, which resulted in a home fire. So also in that area, end users should be aware of that. The change in that is a risk. Electrical faults are another major cause of fires in homes. Overloaded sockets, damaged cables, outdated wiring, they can lead to arcing and to short circuits. Of course, the increasing number of connected devices load the domestic electric systems more than they did in the past. And with that, maintenance of the electric installations will become more and more important. We should not forget the other areas about heating, which is still a root cause, and especially with the way furniture and curtains and clothes are made today. Together with smoking and candles, they still take care of a significant part of incidents in the home. So even when we adapt to these new energy technologies, it's vital to remember that the basic household fire safety, which means awareness, detection and prevention, remains our strongest attention. The energy transition is, of course, turning our homes into small energy systems. It comes with new fire safety challenges. We already talked about the batteries and the thermal runaway, but also EVs and plug-in hybrids, which are in and around your house, can be an increased risk. Also solar panels, which we see on more and more houses, the way they are installed, but also the material which is used is key in ensuring that the number of incidents stays low. So as the energy technology evolves, fire safety must evolve with it, and it must be built into the homes by design. I want to highlight, especially for the lithium-ion batteries, that the fire risk is not only during the use of their life cycle. Basically, lithium-ion batteries are a risk during their whole life cycle. Already in manufacturing and transport, when you transport large volumes of cells and materials, you of course transport also a large amount of energy. So as well as on manufacturing plants as during transport, already incidents happened. Also storage can be a problem. That if you put many batteries together in one room, in a shop or in a warehouse, and an incident happens, that incident extends itself very rapidly. We already talked about the risks during usage, and that with so many lithium-ion batteries around us, the risk is also increasing. And another item which comes up more and more is the second use of lithium-ion batteries. Car batteries are sold as cheaper devices for storing energy at your home. If you go on Amazon, you can find them, but we want to ensure that people are very careful with that because it can also bring a risk into their home. Last but not least, at the end of the life cycle, the batteries are collected and recycled, and also in that area, we see incidents happening as well on storage, but also on waste plants where people put lithium-ion batteries in the normal waste. So it's really important that we do not only look at the usage, but that we look at the life cycle. Here are some points key stakeholders tells us. Most of the points we already touched, so I don't want to read them. You can read them yourself. But the conclusion is rather simple, but can be complex. We must improve both awareness and readiness. Enforced standards and legislation can help to reduce these risks. Across Europe, fire stakeholders are taking action. Fire responders, consumer organizations, standardization, industry associations. Together we work on awareness, on the risks people have, but also advocate with policymakers to include fire safety in the regulation related to the energy transition. Fire safety must be seen as a pillar of sustainable energy. Each of us can help to reduce this risk. We talked about most of these points you see on this slide, but it's also essential that you bring these points to the outside world, even to your family or to your surrounding in your work, because that helps to create awareness around the risks of lithium-ion batteries. To make the transition safe, we need a holistic approach. It has to be supported by all stakeholders together. With the new technology, up-to-date standards, and with effective regulation, this is our shared responsibility. To close off, the energy transition is essential for a sustainable future, but it must also be safe. By integrating fire safety into innovation, policy making, regulation, and public awareness, having public campaigns, we can achieve both sustainability, resilience, and safety. Martin, with that, I would like to hand back to you and thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Paul. It's good to hear what we can do ourselves to improve fire safety. Thank you for that. Let me see, I have to get back to the screen. So, creating awareness is typically something that we can do ourselves. And that everyone can work on, and that awareness is also needed when it comes to fire safety and the fire safety risks for vulnerable people. Fire and domestic safety affect everyone, from children and families to older adults. In the next presentation by Miguela Fiorik of ANAC, we will explore how targeted awareness campaigns, tailored interventions, and inclusive designs can make a real difference. Miguela, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Martin, and good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us in this webinar today and this discussion on such an important topic as on building awareness on fire safety risks that were very well presented also by Paul before me. So before I start diving into this topic, I would like to tell you who we are. I work for ANAC, that is the European Consumer Voice in Standardization. And our mission since 1995 is that of achieving optimal levels of consumer protection, welfare, and sustainability, all throughout the process of standardization. That means from the legislation that is underpinned and underpins standardization, and the actual development of standards of consumer relevance, as well as in the use of those standards, such as for market surveillance or for conformity assessment. You can see some facts and figures in this slide and data on our involvement. Our membership is open to consumer associations in 34 European countries, and about 170 experts are working in different technical committees, especially at European and international level. On the right side, you see the priorities ANEC is working on, from accessibility to traffic and mobility, and I personally coordinate the activities on services and sustainability. Fire safety is dealt with mainly through the services sector, but in truth is relevant all throughout our priorities, as you can imagine. But first of all, why does fire safety matter to all? We often think it's a technical issue, but in reality, it's about people. And if we look at the data from the European Fire Safety Alliance, on average, 5,000 lives are taken by fires in residential buildings every year. And 10 times as much is the number of people that are injured annually because of fires. And what we need to bear in mind is that these numbers are conservative because we still lack harmonized European-wide data. What is very relevant for the discussion of today is to know that vulnerable groups are the ones most at risk, as you can surely imagine. So what does ANEC do? How do we contribute to improving fire safety and inclusive housing in our work? Currently, in this area, our priorities relate to enhancing fire safety data. So we have supported the EU FireSat pilot project, and we are happy to see that this project on achieving harmonized fire safety data will be continued. And I'm sure we will hear about this project more during the week in the following meetings. And on the other hand, we also think that the next step should be having a European-wide accident and injury database going beyond fire safety, so including fire safety data, but also extending this. And I'll also explain more about this in a moment. We also see an important role played by the European Fire Information Exchange platform that Heikki also represents and manages in the Commission. We think this platform has an important role to play, similarly to what we're doing this week in exchanging good practices among stakeholders and member states. On the other hand, we also call for a European fire safety strategy. This is done under the lead of the European Fire Safety Alliance in collaboration with many like-minded stakeholders. And our focus is on addressing present and new risks in all buildings, addressing CO poisoning prevention, and especially having in mind the needs of vulnerable persons. But when we talk about vulnerable consumers, who are we talking about? Vulnerability is not a fixed label. As it is mentioned in the standard, I quote here on inclusive service design, a vulnerable situation can be temporary, sporadic, or permanent. Vulnerability can affect us at any time. To any of us can happen because of different factors. It can be because of age. It can be because of a limited mobility or a disability, but also relating to health conditions, from sensory to cognitive or chronic illness. Not to forget socioeconomic factors, of course, low income or the fact of living alone or poor housing conditions can create barriers and can put us into a vulnerable situation. And important point also, you may lack access to safety information. We were hearing earlier the importance for all of us to become more aware, but of course you need to access information. Let's not forget there can be also a limit in providing information digitally. Not everybody may be digitally savvy. So if we recognize all these possible vulnerabilities, we can ensure that fire safety legislation and standards and awareness campaigns are effectively addressing everyone and reaching out everyone. So last year, to better understand public fire safety awareness and what was the perception of consumer organizations, we surveyed our members. And from their replies, we could see how they all agreed, of course, that fire safety is a shared responsibility for governments, businesses, and individuals alike. But governments have a very important role, of course, of creating and enforcing legislation. This is a precondition, of course, for fire safety. Other aspects that they see the government can be responsible for and help with is helping financially those citizens in vulnerable situations, and also providing public training and prevention strategies. The consumer challenges our colleagues at the national level have witnessed and reported on are lack of awareness. So there's limited awareness on what to do, what are the fire hazards, and what are the preventive measures to be taken. They also reported regulatory gaps. For example, there are no requirements for smoke alarms in older homes in certain cases, as it was reported in Denmark or Spain. And of course, the difficulty for consumers in assessing fire safety in products and in public, when being in public places. So if we look at this at the key barriers, these are exacerbated when talking about vulnerable groups. And we can see exactly what I was saying earlier about the access to information, small prints, use of jargon, and the digital divide for certain persons who can be a limit in accessing that safety information. And they may be not aware, or we may not be aware of safety measures, even simple ones that can save a life, such as installing correctly smoke alarms in our homes. And then the conditions of housing can be also including outdated electrical installations that can create problems. And importantly, there is a limited inclusion of vulnerable groups when policies are developed for fire safety, or when there are consultations about them. So what do we recommend as ANEC? To integrate, and it's also part of our activities, to integrate accessibility and safety in standards about buildings and products, and making sure that there are tailored awareness campaigns, so that we go also and reach out to housing, social housing networks, or also throughout health services, for example. And importantly, we need to also encourage local community engagement. So going a bit more broader, generally for public awareness, we recommend to authorities, but also to our own membership and civil society organizations that may start awareness campaigns or deal with public awareness campaigns, to make sure that the campaigns are tailored and accessible, that we look at target groups with wide reach. Of course, the way that the youth is accessing the information may be different from more adult public, or targeting social housing, for example. And when providing online tools, always having accessibility in mind. And generally for communication, we always need to make sure that the communication materials are inclusive, so that everyone can understand and act safely. The other important aspect are educational programs. It's very important to promote further those programs such as Be Fire Safe at School or Stay Wise that exist already, and they can be further built on or especially promoted. And this should be integrated all throughout our education system. And we also should make sure that community workshops are provided at the local level, with escape planning exercises, and always ensuring that the vulnerable groups can express their needs directly, so that they are directly asked what are their needs for mobility, or whether they have needs at visual or cognitive level. So what else can be done? Beyond awareness, we need to empower consumers and communities. To better involve consumers, we need clear fire safety labeling on products. We saw earlier what accidents can happen with faulty devices or with misuse. And also, it's important to test independently the products that we have on the market. Consumers should also have a reporting mechanism at hand for unsafe products so that they can report when identifying unsafe products on the market. As for community planning, of course, it's very crucial to have local fire checks, drills, and evacuation planning, including personal emergency evacuation plans. This is something that is already developed at the national level throughout Europe, but maybe requires further understanding and use in practice. We also think it's important to promote the use of checklists to have the information at hand. And awareness campaigns, we bring the example of FEED, the Forum for European Electrical Domestic Safety, that has developed those checklists for electrical safety that really are straightforward, giving the message on what needs to be taken into account to prevent fires. And also an example from our Spanish member from SECU that developed videos on device risks, very simple to understand. And again, the engagement from the governments that is required is that of supporting financial prevention and training and making sure there are public consultations on fire safety policies. And at the European level, there is certainly a role, undeniably, to foster collaboration among all stakeholders. Let me have a digression now on the energy performance of buildings. As Paul mentioned earlier, of course, we are talking about new risks that are appearing also in light of the energy transition. And I need to underline that ANEC strongly believes energy performance is crucial for reducing environmental impacts of buildings. And we have been calling, especially for harmonized methodologies, to ensure reliable energy performance certificates. This is one of the tools that is used. Of course, that is the first information provision that is that the consumer is seeing on energy efficiency. And we have welcomed the latest developments and the updates of the directive with new requirements to cut down greenhouse gas emissions, but also putting these EPCs, the energy performance certificates, at the core of the framework. And very welcome development is the introduction of mandatory one-stop shops across European countries that can streamline the consumer information. And I'll explain why this is important. So earlier this year, we developed a paper. You can find information on this slide, and later when the presentation is shared. We have provided recommendations for the implementation and the future revision of the directive, especially with attention to the energy performance certificates role. On one-stop shops that, as I said, become mandatory at national level, we think these are really important because with tailor-made guidance and independent advice, they can really accompany the consumers throughout the renovation journey and giving proper tips and suggestions for their dwellings. And possibly it's exactly at that time, because they will see the situation of the apartment or the home of the consumer, they can help identify a risk. Of course, with all the guidance that is foreseen also to address risk from electrification of our buildings. Let's now look at the role of standards in preventing domestic fires. As we all know, faulty appliances can cause serious fires, as it was sadly shown also with the Grenfell Tower fire some years ago. We therefore supported the initiative at the International Committee to strengthen fire prevention in the standard on safety of household and similar electrical appliances. This is addressing surface temperature limits and resistance to heat and fire. But harmonized standards can also promote consistent fire safety in other ways. We also consider that it would be beneficial to develop a standard on home electrical checks guidance. And this could be done in a similar way as it's already done for gas installations in certain countries. But to improve standards and policies, we need solid data. We have been calling for harmonized data collection. We are very happy that in the fire statistics, there is this approach to go further in standardizing them so that they can be more reliable and comparable. But we also call upon building on this experience and calling upon the setup of a European-wide accident and injury database that would include fire incidents. We believe that this would benefit all stakeholders, all actors involved. Reliable data can help governments, businesses, consumer organizations, standardizers, and all agencies involved in prevention and enforcement, and especially helping those most at risk. Why does it matter for vulnerable consumers? Reliable data can help identify high-risk groups, and therefore, we will be enabled to have targeted prevention measures. To wrap up, here are my key takeaways and conclusions. The actions that are urgently needed are on two specific aspects. On the one hand, we need to promote fire safety education for citizens and professionals. We really call on policymakers, standardizers, and experts to foster a safety culture. So from including the needs of vulnerable consumers in policies and campaigns, to also raise awareness of new risks that were very well displayed earlier, for fires that are caused by lithium batteries, but generally from electrification of our homes. And in that sense, it's important to invest in research to face these new challenges, and making sure that energy efficiency and safety are actually going hand in hand without trade-offs between them. And the second important aspect is building on the insights on the EU FireSat pilot project, so to create also beyond the harmonized fire statistics, a pan-European accident and injury database. We find it really crucial to have this because reliable injury and fire statistics are really essential for evidence-based prevention. I thank you for your attention, and I look forward to the discussion.
Okay, thank you, Miguel, for highlighting how empowering individuals with knowledge makes our communities safer. And making communities safer is also one of the objectives of the task group Domestic Life Safety that is headed by Thorsten Teicher. We are happy to have him with us to inform us about practical solutions and guidance on improving residential fire safety. Thorsten, the floor is yours. I think that you want to take over and share your screen, if I'm right.
Right, I will.
Okay.
Just a second.
Take your time.
All good. So it should be in a second. Okay, here we are. Okay, and you should see now something.
Yes.
That's very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, from my side, very good morning. I'm happy to be here and to outline some practical solutions and what does it mean to realize residential fire safety. At Euralarm, our mission is to create a safer and a more secure Europe, and maybe you have already heard about our new white paper, Enhancing Fire Safety, the Fire Safety in Residential Environments. This is one of the sources I used here for this presentation. Yeah, first of all, why do we talk about residential fire safety? It's quite easy. We have also estimates, we have not complete and 100% sure figures, but around 4,000 to 5,000 people die in fires every single year in Europe. And it is true that fires in residential buildings are not or have a smaller share of the total numbers of fires in Europe, but these relatively few fires in residential buildings account for 80% of the fire deaths in Europe. And this is one of the basic reasons why we talk about fire safety in residential buildings. Looking generally on fire deaths, we have to, and this is a fact, that smoke inhalation is the leading cause of death. It is in the vast majority of cases. And clear is also that vulnerable groups, like outlined in the previous lecture by Michaela very impressively, are children, elderly, the disabled, people who are temporarily or sporadically impaired in any way. These groups are, of course, most at risk, and this is a small focus I want to lay today also on these groups. Another fact is that things are evolving over time. So our homes are changing, and so do the risks very clearly. Where we had in the past, say in the last decades, we have since the last decades we have significantly more synthetic materials in our homes, and these materials unfortunately burn on the one hand faster, and on the other hand they emit significantly more toxic fumes, which is one of the major risks today. Also outlined already today in the initial presentation by Paul van der Sanden, it's the fact that we have now a trend, a clear trend, a necessary trend on the other hand, to an electric society, which means we use today more electrical vehicles. We have e-bikes or e-scooters. We have photovoltaic systems on our roofs, and consequently an energy storage system somewhere in the house. And this means the growth of lithium-ion batteries in homes will also continue, as this is not a temporary trend. It is our future of using energy and realizing mobility. The next point is that urbanization adds another layer of complexity, because of course in cities we have more densely built up residential buildings compared to the more rural regions in your countries, where more one or two family homes are the standard. If you go into cities, you will find a lot of more, or even very much often high-rise buildings, or at least multiple dwelling units. Another point that is a kind of evolving risk is the fact that our housing stock is aging, and you know that regular maintenance is quite often has not been done that regular how it should be, which means that in an aged housing stock you will find a lot of outdated wiring system for the electrical services in the house, and this of course causes another risk. Second point is, in the past people hadn't thought about too much about fire protection. So previously done work on and thoughts on fire safety in residential buildings, and this leads from a today's perspective to a very limited fire protection in an aged housing stock that you surely will find in many cities and regions in Europe. So it means at the end, fire safety isn't static. Fire safety has continuously developed and has to be in line with that way how we today, meanwhile, build and power our homes and how we live in them. So if we look onto one-family homes versus apartments and multiple dwelling units, we have, of course, on the other hand, different risks. And this is also something we have to consider. If we look on the fire sources as the first aspect, we will find that in one-family homes, many things, fire sources are around the topics of cooking, heating, and electrical faults. This is a clear fact, which is underlined by several statistics from different countries. On the other hand, the risk to spread a fire, that a fire can spread, is pretty much contained because it is a one-family home, and consequently also, as homeowners know their home very well, escape routes are very short, evacuation overall is quite easy and manageable. Also, if you live in a one-family house, you have more direct exits to the garden, in example. So you are very quickly out of your building in case of an emergency. If you look into multi-dwelling buildings, of course you have the same fire sources like cooking, heating, electrical faults. Generally, yes, but there are some more. You have in a multi-dwelling unit, you have more shared systems. You have, of course, as there are more people, you have or will have more EV charging slots, and you have generally more risks if there are common areas, which are necessarily in multiple dwelling buildings. Where we have a contained risk of fire to spread in the building, this is pretty much different in our in buildings with apartments and flats, so means multiple dwelling units. We have there shared walls, we have shafts, we have corridors, we have open fire doors that should be normally closed, but things happen. And people are not aware that this is a fire door and it should not be blocked by anything. These are facts we have to consider in multi-dwelling buildings. Same with the evacuation, of course. If I live in the fourth floor of a multiple dwelling unit, I have to accept that I have to also calculate for my own safety that I have a longer escape routes. And of course, the longer an escape route is, and if there is an alarm in the whole building, there is, of course, a risk that this escape routes also get crowded. And through our way down to the exits, maybe also some heavy fire doors are to be opened to get out of the building. And again, here we have some difficulties for people who belong to these already defined and mentioned vulnerable groups, because they will have some problems to open these in this moment closed unnecessary fire doors. So in general, same already mentioned on the previous slide is older buildings have often outdated wiring. This is, of course, valid for both types of buildings. And in some cases already today, but definitely in the future, photovoltaic panels and energy storage systems increase in both in existing and in new buildings, in one-family homes, and of course also in multiple dwelling units and buildings. These are risks that are to be considered when we talk about fire safety and residential fire safety. And that's at the end is the reason why multiple dwelling buildings require stricter codes, regular inspections, and shared energy emergency plans. This is definitely important. Well, looking at the regulatory landscape in Europe, we find that we have a very impressive mosaic. We have, on the one hand, of course, local and national building codes. They define fire-resistant materials. They define acts. They define how to, if and how to place alarms, fire alarms especially. This is setting the rules and setting also the rules to for maintenance. This is done on a local and national level. These building codes quite often base on European and international standards issued by EN or ISO or IEC, Senelec, and so on. Standards generally try to harmonize, in our perspective today, safety expectations. But does not necessarily mean these are all harmonized standards, but this is generally something what standards try to do: harmonize expectations, make things, products, solutions comparable. What it means, in some cases, there are definitely harmonized standards. This can have to do with regulations or directives issued by the European Commission. And this is the case, an example, with the Construction Products Regulation. It ensures, among many, many other topics around buildings and building products, it ensures fire performance of materials and fire detection systems. This is called, this product group is called their fixed firefighting systems. This is the overall title for a lot of things around fire safety, and among others, smoke alarms, fire detection systems, extinguishing systems, smoke exhaust systems, and so on. Very impressive. And also under this construction products regulation, it was possible to harmonize standards, issue them as harmonized standards, and make them mandatory to get used if we have to install anything about fire safety in European buildings. Again, back to national level, electrical installation rules. Electrical installation rules are not something that is ruled or regulated on European level. This is again back to the regional, national, or even regional side. And this is something which is to be considered as crucial, because electric faults have been in the past, and they are today again top causes for fire. So differences between countries remain at the end of the day significant due to not aligned application rules and guidelines. And Euralarm's position in this point is quite clear. Europe needs a unified and high-level approach to residential fire safety, where standards are consistent and enforcement is robust. This is our very clear position, what we try to communicate as often as possible. So, prevention strategies. Of course, if there are risks, there should be a strategy how to prevent any hazard. For the one-family houses, it's very clear. You can also find it in our white paper I mentioned earlier. In this lecture, smoke and CO alarms. Install them and test them at least monthly. Use fire extinguishers and kitchen fire blankets for a first approach to an early detected fire, because if you have detectors in your house, you will detect the fires or any other hazards early enough to get active on your own, and then you need some tools, and in this case it is of course fire extinguishers and kitchen fire blankets. Use stove guards to prevent unattended cooking fires if you have an electric stove. Ensure that the electrical system and your heating appliances get a regular maintenance. This is the best you can do for your own safety, and of course also for the efficiency of these appliances. And have a clear escape plan for all occupants. Train it, communicate it, make sure that everyone knows how to get out of the buildings as fast as possible and what are the signals they shall react on. If we look into the multiple dwelling buildings, of course, there are the same prevention strategies if we look into the into the single apartment. But in addition, in this type of buildings, we need a building-wide alarm system to make it clear that if there is a fire in one of the apartments and nobody is responding to it, then from a certain moment on, there is a building-wide alarm. Also, make sure and do it by regulations. And remember the previous slides, this is on national or even regional level. Make sure that fire-resistant materials are used in common spaces. In all these circulation areas, landings, staircases, and so on. Perform regular fire safety checks by whoever is responsible for that. Make someone responsible, please, and ensure that regular fire safety checks are done. And make sure that resident awareness and engagement is also ensured. Generally, technology can help saving lives. On the one hand, interconnected smoke and heat alarms provide a reliable and really reliable alerting for any hazards through all of the rooms of the apartment or the house. It is ensured that if one gets triggered by whatever, smoke in this case, that all of the other ones are sounding together. Domestic hazard warning systems. What is it? Domestic hazard warning systems is linking any types of alarms with lighting, heating, automation, and even your phone to ensure, on the one hand, safety for your domestic living space, on the one hand, on the other hand, to make sure that also some event-related meaningful controls are done. An example, if a smoke alarm gets triggered in the night, the interconnected smoke alarms will warn you all over the whole premises. And if you have these domestic hazard warning system, it is easily possible to get on the escape routes to switch the lights on, to, as an example, to switch off all vents or climatic appliances. Especially if we look to high-rise buildings, sprinkler systems in the apartments, not in the common spaces, but in the apartments, are highly effective for the prevention of the spread of fire, which is, as we learned from the past, which is one of the key points to make sure that in high-rise buildings, fire cannot spread, not within a floor and not over different floors. Again, back to the fact, people want to have some comfort in their premises, and install some, for this reason, some smart home systems. Well, integrated with the domestic hazard warning system, integrated with your smoke alarms, and this allows you for remote alerts and also event-related controls of building services in a way. And it also informs you even if you are not at home. There are some high-risk scenarios, no doubt. As already mentioned, older buildings with outdated wiring and a poor compartmentation. Then, of course, high-rise structures, where renovation in older buildings is a key point to upgrade safety, especially in high-rise buildings where we require strong evacuation strategies, and also, of course, water supply and solution, especially for the upper floors. Then, as also Michaela from ANEC mentioned, the vulnerable people, vulnerable populations in our societies, which live anywhere in our countries, who may have reduced mobilities, and due to this fact, slower response times to any type of hazard warning, and maybe also due to age, or due to limitations, or due to impairments, a limited perception. So maybe they are not really aware that there is an alarm. This is something we will have a look onto also. So what we need are safety measures that suit everyone, with accessible alarms, with a very clear signature, and most important also, regular checks. Lessons learned. The Grenfell Tower reforms in the UK, that combustible cladding is banned, and there is improved oversight now. The European Fire Safety Action Plan introduced smoke alarm mandates and safer materials. Again, also one of the lessons learned from disasters like Grenfell. And we have the EU Fire Safe Initiative, where industry and policymakers strongly collaborate for a unified EU fire safety strategy, which is important. And again, what is often unknown or underestimated, with a relatively small investment, you can reliably protect human lives, preserve property values, reduce, as an owner, your insurance costs, and create social stability. And this simply by a 20 or 30 euro smoke alarm. It's so easy. To make real progress, we need policy, enforcement, and awareness working together. So the recommendation of your alarm to this point is make residential fire safety inspections mandatory, use harmonized EU standards and through this a stronger enforcement, set incentive for compliance and penalties for non-compliance, empower your local authorities with training and resources, and through this again engage residents. And at the end, don't forget your vulnerable populations. Give them that level of support they need. So at the end, fire safety is not just a private responsibility, it's a shared public duty in our view. We operate a task group focusing on domestic life safety to extend these fire safety issues, in European homes. We collaborate with the European Fire Safety Alliance on a very, very intensive level, and of course also with other associations. We actively do policy advocacy by contributing expert insights directly to EU directives and regulations, so to the policymakers. And we love to share our expertise and educate through webinars like this, through publications and awareness campaigns. And again, as Paul van der Sanden already outlined, we need a holistic approach. Fire safety isn't a product, it's a culture. And it combines prevention, preparedness, technology, education, and collaboration. To come to the end, for policymakers, please align your regulations and invest in enforcement. For the fire services who also may be here in this webinar, continue community education. It's so very important. For the installers among us, follow standards, get trained, maintain that level, and verify your installations. And for residents, test your alarms regularly, plan your escape, and stay informed. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Thorsten.
Thanks.
And with that, I thank you for the white paper that you mentioned a couple of times. Perhaps could you mention that it can be downloaded from the URM website. It's an insightful document with valuable information on improving fire safety in residential environments. Once again, thank you. Thanks to all the speakers, by the way, and I invite you, audience, to ask your questions. I received some questions as well that we could do first to give our audience some time to digest all the information, if I may put it that way. And let me kick off by asking Heike. Let me see if he's still here. A practical question for you, Heike. You will be hosting the webinar Learning from Fire Incidents later this week. What can people expect, and is it still possible to register?
I believe it's still possible to register from the European Fire Safety Week website. And like always with the FIEP webinars, our mailing list is, I think, around 600 contacts now. And we always invite people to spread the word. So if you received the invitation, please send it to your fire safety community. For the webinar itself, the previous webinar that we had was about evolvement of national fire codes, and of course the fire incidents were basically in the core of the fire code. So whenever something dramatic happens, this normally has an impact on the fire regulations as well. But of course, this will be one of the topics in the webinar, but we really expect and we hope that the presenters will give a bit bigger picture. What things, what stakeholder groups, who and how would need to learn from fires.
Okay, thank you. Let's wait and see. And if you haven't registered yet, you can do it via the website of the European Fire Safety Week. Paul, you mentioned electrical vehicles in all kinds of forms. How about other developments like the rise of wind turbines, batteries, hydrocarbon, and so on? How do they impact fire safety?
I think, Martin, everything we bring into the home environment which generates energy or stores energy is a potential risk. And it's not that we should not do it. That's not our message. But we ask basically that before enforcement is done, like on solar panels, like on home batteries and things like that, that good regulation and standards are in place. So not to wait until incidents happen and then afterwards trying to correct that. A second remark I would like to make, I mentioned it, which is often used in presentations, is that it will not happen to me. We saw that when Annick did a questionnaire with consumers about why they don't put smoke sensors in their house, and they said, it will not happen to me. And we see the same in the battery environment. People do not realize that just buying a new charger for your electric bike because the plug fits in the battery does not mean that you have the right charger with your e-bike. And also the new technologies upcoming, like micro wind turbines, if hydrogen gets a bigger place, professional installation, but also education from the end users is crucial going forward.
Thank you. And Miguel, you mentioned the awareness campaigns that you run. What can we do ourselves to improve fire safety?
Thank you. Well, what I need to clarify is we have a lot of suggestions and recommendations on how to carry out a successful campaign. It's something we also do with regards to prevention of carbon monoxide poisoning every year. And I think also recently my colleague promoted this. ANEC is not directly talking to the consumers. It's our membership that will be more at the national level and so on. So it's really important to address awareness at all levels. So to spread awareness on fire safety at all levels. Honestly, I think the most important is education. As I said, it would be really crucial to create a fire safety culture, that our children already in school are told how to behave, that it becomes really normal to be aware of what you should do in certain situations.
Thank you. Thorsten, you mentioned that a simple smoke alarm can save lives. What is holding us back from mandatory installing these devices across all European countries?
That's one of our key points, of course, because sure, it is a fact. It is a proven fact, and you can read it in the statistics of all countries where there is already a smoke alarm legislation, that it definitely makes a difference if you have a smoke alarm or not. So the number of fire deaths and even the number of fires that are reported and lead to an outcall for the fire brigades are significantly decreasing since smoke alarm legislation is there. So of course there is a recommendation to all policymakers, to all European governments, to those countries where we don't have where there is currently not a smoke alarm legislation, to think about it, to consider it, to learn from other countries, and to establish the smoke alarm legislation.
Okay.
And for the private homeowners, for people who follow the recommendation from Paul, so don't even think this will not happen to me. It can happen to you every day. So even if there is no legislation, please get into the DIY store or into serious internet shops and buy a smoke alarm. It's a 30 euro invest, and it's an invest, 30 euros for 10 years. We talk about fire safety and safety for your life for 3 euros per year.
Yeah.
This shouldn't be a problem for anyone.
Agree. There are also some questions coming in. I will put them forward. One question: as provision of healthcare is pushed back into the community, how can we plan to reduce risk of fire for occupants who are bedbound with high levels of evacuation difficulty, especially in high-rise buildings that require a simultaneous evacuation due to poor passive compartmentation? Thorsten, might this be something that you can answer?
Not 100% sure. We have again the reference to our white paper. Of course this should happen. We wrote it down. We really made a lot of spent a lot of time on working on it. At the end of the day, we can formulate it like this. At the end of the day, it is not one single point that is essential to save the life. It is an addition of several steps of things that combined with each other at the end ensures that you can live safe at home, which is at the end our goal. It is prevention, it is detection, it is preparing to escape. It is the acceptance that there are people in our societies that cannot perceive alarms and that need, in this case, individually accessible alarms. It's a combination of all this together that needs to be considered, and where people as well as policymakers simply should listen to the experts that are available here in Europe to share this information, to share their expertise. We are happy to do this.
Okay, thank you. One more question. Can we combine the active and passive fire protection? I think that I know the answer. Any combination that will work more effective is okay, I would say. But Paul, perhaps you can give your feedback on that.
Martin, I think all three of us talked about the holistic approach.
Yeah.
So it's not one thing. And of course you can do small steps to make big improvements, but I think to do it in the right way, passive and active fire protection should work together. And Martin, I saw a remark from Vele de Decker in the chat also about the used batteries and for using them in different applications. I think that's an area I highlighted that, which I think is of concern. That we see now batteries coming out of car accidents and things like that sold through Amazon and sometimes repacked, and then people think that they buy a product which can help them to manage their energy in a better way. But of course, that brings a lot of dangers with that also.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I see no more questions coming in. So with that, our webinar comes to an end. I would like to thank all the presenters for sharing their insight. Thank you, audience, for being with us, of course. I mentioned it already in the chat, but the recordings of this webinar, as well as the presentations, will become available via the European Fire Safety Alliance, I think somewhere later this week. I would like to remind you to the white paper on residential fire safety that can be downloaded from our website. And last but not least, an interesting topic that I would like to share. On November 18, we will host a webinar on fire protection solutions for data centers. I highly recommend that webinar to everyone, as well as the other webinars that will be organized this week as part of the European Fire Safety Week. Thank you for being with us, and we hope to see you next time. Bye-bye.